Secure's and Price for Thursday, April 16th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. Thank you for joining us here on this sunny Thursday in the city of Vancouver. And let me just first apologize for my voice this week. Beyond usual. Been fighting a terrible cold. Barely made it through yesterday's show. I think I'm better today. Think we'll hold up today.
You've only got one day left and you're into the weekend.
Exactly. Trucking through here.
Yeah.
Thought, do I call Jeff in? I was like, no, Jeff's got 2 late games, rink-wide, plus a long day Friday at the rink locker. Clean out today. So just grinding through.
You got this.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness, the way I felt yesterday. Anyways, we're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studio here at the historic Wall Center. Visit shoptoyota.ca. Visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. A lovely day to go out there, browse the lot, take a test drive.
Oh, yeah.
Final game of the regular season, and it brings us to our daily poll question. Who is appearing in their last game with the Vancouver Canucks? You can vote for head coach Adam Foote. You can vote for Elias Pettersson. You can vote for both. You can vote for neither. Do so at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. Before we get into the voting and our analysis of what's to come here with, of course, the would-be franchise centerman and the head coach, let's address this matter off the top because this is the important stuff beyond the sticks and pucks and games. Many of you would have seen yesterday that Elias and his wife, Caitlin Bird Pettersson, have experienced a second miscarriage. Heartbreaking for them as a couple. Caitlin continues to be most brave in sharing her experience, her emotions, not to mention constructive in creating community and support for those who have had similar experiences. I commend her for it. I know my mother would commend her for it as someone who had 2 miscarriages before me. One between my brother and I, was told you'll never have children. And that was a half century ago. And needless to say, we've made all sorts of medical advances since then. So our empathy is with Elias and Caitlin as they navigate these emotions and the sadness. I saw the outpouring on social media last night from Canucks fans, and I was truly heartwarmed that Canucks fans were able to separate the humanity from the hockey on this matter and show love and support. Yeah. Well, as you know, social media can be a awful place, but show love and support for Caitlin and Elias. Now, all that said, the Canucks organization has to separate hockey from humanity also, right? And proceed on the course that it feels best, fits the organization's priorities. So I'm not sure this turn of personal hardship will have bearing on whatever decision they choose to make with Elias the player. Could be wrong. Well, perhaps in the exit meetings, they discover and Elias pours his heart out and talks about how deeply affected they were by this miscarriage or by these miscarriages that had affected his play, and that there's a pathway to performance going forward. But barring that, would it surprise anyone if the Canucks have a come-to-Jesus conversation with Elias about him moving on this summer, about fresh start somewhere else, getting his list of destinations where he would accept a trade, and then going out and constructing a deal?
From a Canucks standpoint, I don't think this affects their hockey operations in the least. But how that post can affect his future, no, that can absolutely. Because, of course, he has the hammer. He has control. He does not need to be traded anywhere if he does not want to be traded. So if his personal life is such that he feels the need to nest a little bit and not disrupt the apple cart and not change anything and to have smooth sailing on that side of his life, then that post may have a hockey consequence, but from his standpoint, and ultimately, he gets that no move clause written into his contract. He gets the say. So we're back to square one, where it's going to be up to the player, and the player is going to have to say, yeah, new pastures is what I need in order for, hey, and it doesn't solve any science with regards to his better half, but they just may want to turn the page on their lives too, by starting somewhere new. Who knows? Who knows what's in their head? But these are the kinds of human decisions that all humans make in their careers, and it's going to be up to Elias Pettersson to decide what's best for him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if he wants to stay here, then that's that. We have seen organizations heap pressure on players in the past. Famously tore the Rangers locker room apart last year when they leaned on Chris Kreider, Jacob Trouba, and ultimately made those trades. We've seen the Canucks do that with Andrei Kuzmenko. It has become a little less verboten than what it once was. There was once a school of thought, and the Canucks were at the forefront of this when Gillis was running the team as a former agent. No. You negotiate that in. It is in stone, tablet. And anything beyond that is an attempt to renegotiate terms of contract. That was the view with many clubs and for a long period of time. Now it's become a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, flexible.
I think in most of those cases, you'll find that we are talking about players that are either A, disruptive, or B, very loud, large voices in the room. That's not to say that, the theories on Elias Pettersson's effect on the room are not true. I'm just saying he's not a loud voice. He is not disruptive in the conventional sense. So a little bit different there. But I still don't think that it's beyond the realm that the Vancouver Canucks instigate a conversation about where he wants to be next season.
Well, look, we know the managers here haven't been big believers in Elias Pettersson in the past. Patrick Calvin has made that perfectly clear. And, of course, a lot of Elias' struggles predate this year. This is a second straight season where, it's 18 months plus, 2 years plus, where he has not been the player that we once knew, the 100-point player, the guy who was more than 3 shots per game, the guy who was a dangerous goal scorer and playmaker. He has become a decent two-way center, but certainly not a franchise player, certainly not someone who would have been given an $11.6 million contract if people knew this would be the production going forward. And as we know, Patrick Calvin and Rick Tocchet before Adam Foote had been critical of his practice habits, his preparation, his summer training. So,
and yet it's not so obvious that he's moving on that, I'm not expecting any sort of salute from the crowd here tonight, right? Like, I don't even think it's at 50-50 that he moves on.
Road game, but.
Oh, pardon me. You're right. Yes. Sorry. But last night we didn't see that because it's not so evident that he is moving on. Like I wouldn't even put it at 50-50 that he's coming back next year. I'd say it's the odds or the majority of evidence would lead us to believe he is coming back.
Okay.
Would you go as high as 50-50?
I think the Canucks absolutely want to move on. I have no idea how Elias feels about it.
And then even if your mind's eye you would like to move on, actually executing that plan and actually finding a deal that you find palatable, that's also a different thing.
Like, here's the thing. I think Elias would say yes in a heartbeat to a trade to the Kings or Ducks. Do I think he'd agree to a trade to Detroit or Carolina? I don't know.
But then
Ottawa?
But then you're also dependent on, do the Canucks get out of that deal what they expect to get out of that deal? And that's what matters as well, is what they expect to get out of the deal.
I think the Canucks are past the point of expecting good return.
Well, again, that's totally fine.
I think the Canucks
they still expect
are
something,
at
though.
the point of let's move on. Let's get what we can.
So full salary and a second round pick. They're not taking that. They're not taking that.
Well, $11.6 million, there's going to have to be money coming back this way. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, would they retain? I mean, gosh, would you retain on 6 more years? That is, and we've had that conversation, in fact, a couple weeks ago with Rob Williams, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, I think it stands to reason that there would be an NHL roster player of some salary coming back, and then it becomes how much value do you see in that player and in that contract, and then how does that affect whatever other pieces, if there are other pieces.
This management group, Matt, I fear still overvalues their players.
But they moved on when it became time to move on JT Miller. They made the JT Miller trade, knowing they would pretty much lose the trade, and just holding their nose and doing the best they could.
Yeah, I would say that was a bigger gun to their head than this one is.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Then there's Adam Foote, the head coach, and look, it's been plain as day that he has been over his head as an NHL head coach in his rookie season with the big whistle. 2 more years left on the contract. I would not be surprised if that last year was an option or had some sort of buyout. We know how the Canucks have structured coaching contracts in the past. It has its pitfalls. We saw that with Boudreau, but I'm not sure that's what matters to ownership. I think what matters is getting off the money more so than whatever other complications that may cause for the front office, right? That's hockey ops' problem, not our problem. We just don't want to pay him not to coach. I would be surprised if Adam Foote is back. And this from Murph Gaffar, plenty of talk about the future of many people in the Canucks organization over the last little while. 0 decisions have been made yet. Whatever choices are made are not only in mind of the next 4 or 5 years, but you have to set up the foundation for the next 10 to 15, and ownership knows that. Well, if ownership knows that, then they should absolutely be getting rid of everybody and cleaning house. It's a 77-year-old president of hockey operations. If you've got an eye to the next 10 to 15 years, he ain't going to be here. And that means moving on the general manager and the head coach as well, because they are from the Jim Rutherford tree. I voted both on the poll.
Really?
Yep. If you had to pin me down and have me guess, I think Rutherford is back because this ownership group's MO has been to have the next guy in place before you move on your chief hockey decision maker. We haven't heard any scuttlebutt whatsoever that they're out there looking to line somebody up. Now, it could be hush-hush. They could be doing a great job of keeping that under wraps. But Jimmy, he's talking Jimmy in the back channels to insiders, so I would think we would have heard something by now if that was the case. So if you ask me, I think it's probably Alvin and Foote that are both gone, and alongside Elias Pettersson, if he is willing to waive to certain markets.
I'm going out of Foote. I think there are just too many variables for Elias Pettersson for it all to come together right now. Finding the right deal, him saying he wants to go, and yeah, I just don't think they get that together in time. And I think you need to know before July 1, certainly before the draft ideally, but certainly before July 1, if you're doing that deal so that you can set yourself up for next year appropriately. So I don't think they're going to get their ducks in a row there. So I'll just go with Foote.
Mike, break the tie.
I don't know what they're going to do, man. I think they both need to go. I think everybody needs to go. They need to clean house. Let Zeev Buium run the team. At least he smiles.
There'll be good vibes. There'll be better vibes anyway.
Anyways, cast your vote at the Sekerson Price X and YouTube channels. Who's appearing in their last game with the Vancouver Canucks? Foote, Pettersson, neither, or both, or neither. Let's get to our top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery, and then there was one final night of the National Hockey League regular season, 26-27. Canucks conclude their nightmare campaign tonight in Edmonton. They go in on a high note after 3 straight wins, and they have a chance to knock the Oilers down the playoff pecking order. Edmonton could be bumped to the last playoff spot in the West. Wild card number 2 and a first-round date with Colorado with a regulation loss tonight to the Canucks and wins by the Anaheim Ducks in Nashville and the Los Angeles Kings in Calgary.
That game starts at the same time as them. They'll have a little, not that the Canucks are scoreboard watching, but fans can do this. You'll have a little bit of an idea how the Ducks are doing because that's a 5 p.m. start. So they'll be an hour in. There'll be a period in by the time the Canucks drop the puck. So you'll see if there's more stakes. If the Preds are up 2-0 or 3-0 or something like that, then you'll know there's even more stakes to the Canucks and Oilers game.
Yeah. We're going to get into a little more of the playoff outlook here in a second. Canucks looking to match a season-long streak of 4 straight victories. They did that, of course, immediately following the Quinn Hughes trade in December and on the road, no less. They're also looking to hit 60 points. And it's funny how we...
Are they, though?
well, Blake, but it's funny because I think back to our hits with J-Pat as the season was going down the tubes. And at first it was, they're not going to be able to hit 90 points. That means they're out of the playoffs. And, I don't think they're going to.
They're not even an 80-point team?
They're not even an 80 or 82-point team. And it was like, they may struggle to hit 70 points. And then it was like, my God, if they don't pick it up, they're not going to hit 60 points.
Yeah. It is
60 points.
It has been a slide.
That's not even 3/4 of a point per game. When you get a loser point beyond 60 minutes.
Yeah, if you're in the 50s, you've had an historically horrific NHL season.
And we know it's the worst home record in the last 30 years in the National Hockey League. I mean, win tonight 17-21-3 on the road is not that bad. It's pretty representative. It's middle of the pack in the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
If you're just good at home.
Yeah, if you're 500 at home, NHL 500, not even real 500, NHL 500 at home, you would have been in the talk up until 2 weeks ago.
Right. Alas, no. Here's J-Pat with a recap of some of the things that have happened this season. We're not going to go over all of this, but if you're thinking back, where did all this go wrong? Well, this doesn't even include the summer where it was just a catastrophe from management, right? Didn't get that center, didn't re-sign Pius Suter, left yourself vulnerable down the middle, put all your cap dollars in Evander Kane, re-signed Besser, extended Demko and Garland. I mean, just it was like over in the summer last year. But that game in Washington, the injuries to Filipino and Teddy Bluger, that pretty much did you in right there and then. They were 500 after 20 games. We were talking, and 500 isn't good by any stretch. You're still in a chase position for a playoff spot. But remember, early part of this season in the NHL, no real great teams outside of Colorado. There was a lot of bunching there. So 9-9-2 didn't really sewer you like it could have in other years. You were still in the hunt.
Like that's a big chunk of the year. You're a quarter done and not great, but you're alive. You're breathing.
Well, you're certainly alive. And especially you were alive this year, given, how hodgepodged it was. The Demko injury on Remembrance Day versus Winnipeg clearly hurt. It was the second straight year where Demko had to leave a start versus the Jets. Next thing you know, they're losing games. The Hughes trade chatter picks up. We all thought, okay, that's a March by the deadline thing. Maybe it happens, coming out of the Olympic break, going into the Olympic break. There was even a line of thought that, you can't proactively trade Quinn Hughes. That has to be in the summer, July 1st, after he tells you for sure that he's not willing to sign an extension. And lo and behold, Friday, December 12th, out of the blue, Quinn Hughes is traded to the Minnesota Wild for, of course, 3 roster players and a first-round pick. They win those 4 games. Subsequent to the trade, then things fall apart in that 06 road trip in mid-January. A few weeks after Jim Rutherford had put a stake in the ground, there will be no rebuild. He's talking about rebuild. Alvin can't muster the word, talks about retool it a little bit in a hybrid form, gets ridiculed. They shut Demko down. Becomes clear that Demko is going to have another lost season. Then the Kiefer Sherwood trade talks heat up because, of course, he's a UFA, and now you're looking at a rebuild, and he doesn't want to be a part of that. Finally, they utter the word rebuild. Then they go winless in 11, franchise record, and get just 2 wins in 23 games. That sinks them all the way to the bottom of the NHL standings. Then it becomes a sell-off by the deadline, the Tyler Myers trade to Dallas, the Conor Garland trade to Columbus. And then play the kids, which we've talked about way too many times on this program for the last 12 years, and then they win 3 in a row. Tickety-boo.
And if they win tonight to consummate this 4-game winning streak, the last 21 games, they will have gone 8-12-1. Not great, but again, there's a lot of teams over a 21-game stretch that would have an 8-12-1 stretch. So when you combine that with that first 20 games where they were 9-9-2, there's half the season, the first quarter, the last quarter of the season, where you're 4 games below 500. That tells you how bad the middle 41 games of this season was. Like, how do you go from, in half the season, you're merely 4 games below 500 to where they are right now, which is historically bad for not even just this franchise, but they are 23 games below 500. So you can do the math there. They are 19 games below 500 in that middle half of the season.
Now, getting back to the Hughes trade, because a most interesting bit of information has popped up here, but getting back to the Hughes trade. So the narrative is that New Jersey was trying their utmost to unload the salary, principally Andre Palat, to be able to fit Quinn Hughes under the cap and have him join his 2 brothers, Jack and Luke. Andre Palat rejected, with trade protection, rejected a move to Vancouver. At that point, Tom Fitzgerald, then New Jersey's general manager, since fired, basically threw his arms up and said, we can't execute this deal. Bill Guerin swooped in aggressively, said, okay, Jim, Patrick, let's get this deal. Sorry, Jim, not Patrick. He was too busy, right? Alvin was too busy. Jim, let's get this deal done. Back of a napkin. I'll give you these 3 players and a first-round pick, and it got done. Now, subsequently, because Quinn gets to Minnesota and talks about how he was a little surprised it was Minnesota, needless to say. Of course, New Jersey with his brothers, but there was also the talk of the Detroit Red Wings. And of course, Quinn went to the University of Michigan. That's where he's got an off-season home. Right, so a lot of ties to Michigan and Detroit with the Hughes family. Tweet yesterday from a gentleman by the name of Keith Gave. And if you don't know Keith, he's a very, very interesting fellow. He was a sports reporter for the Detroit Free Press. He was also the author of books. He was also intimately involved in the Detroit Red Wings recruitment of the so-called Russian Five after the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union, or the final days of the Soviet Union. And, of course, all those great players on the Russian Red Army team and beyond who suddenly were starting to see pathways to the National Hockey League. If you haven't seen the documentary, The Russian Five, it is truly terrific stuff, like cloak and dagger theater of night stuff in terms of Sergei Fedorov's defection. But it starts with Keith Gave, who at that time is a Red Wings beat reporter,
doing a favor for Red Wings management, namely Jim Lites, who has moved on to be everything for the Dallas Stars franchise, and the legendary Jimmy Devellano, longtime Red Wings executive, because Keith worked for the National Security Agency before his journalism days, spoke Russian, and went over to a World Championships to cover it, but also to talk to Slava Fetisov and Vladimir Konstantinov and basically pass them a note that the Detroit Red Wings had drafted them and that there might be a pathway to playing in the NHL. Now, there's an ethical debate you can have about should reporters be doing that, but I want to set that aside. Long story short, Keith Gave has been very connected to the Detroit Red Wings for an awfully long time. Bring up the tweet again here, Mike. Gave reports yesterday, as Red Wing fans were bitching about Steve Yzerman and his lack of it's 10 straight years without the playoffs now in Detroit and how he wasn't able to land Quinn Hughes. Gave tweets, "You are misinformed. Steve Yzerman in Vancouver had agreed to a trade for Quinn Hughes. It was a done deal on the condition that Hughes agreed to a long-term deal with Detroit. Yzerman and Hughes spoke directly. Hughes declined. Wings sure tried." Huh?
I don't understand the contention because, as the original tweet says,
Well, you're not allowed to talk to players about a contract extension until they're 1 year out. You're not supposed to talk to players about a contract extension until July 1st of this year. Do you remember hearing anything about the Canucks even granting permit?
no.
I just don't.
There might be semantics involved
There
here
may be
in
semantics
terms of an
here.
agent speaking
Now,
to him.
look. There are always wink by the side conversations
Sure.
in the national, under the radar tampering. But if this is true, Quinn Hughes' agents should be in a whole lot of trouble with the NHL. So should Steve Yzerman. I can't imagine if Yzerman has seen this, he's a happy boy. Spoke directly?
Well, this would have been with permission from the Canucks.
But still, Blake.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'm willing to even just the basis of the correction here. The original tweeter is saying basically, why did they pay all that for Justin Falk?
Right.
When you could have paid something similar to get Quinn Hughes, who also is not going to give you an extension because Falk didn't either. Why is it? He said, "I'm going to correct you on this." What's there? You didn't correct him. The point was you paid X for Falk, which is a first-round pick, a third-round pick, Dmitry Buchanelnikov, and Justin Hull, who's an expiring contract. The point still stands. Like, the Wild didn't give Hughes a contract extension either.
They're not allowed to until July 1st.
Yeah. So none of this makes sense.
They're not supposed to be talking until July 1st. And here's the other thing. He said there's a trade agreed to.
But who scuttles that?
Well, apparently Quinn and Steve after a conversation where he wasn't signed a deal. Anyways, that is that raised my eyebrow today.
I'm going to call bullshit there. I don't believe it. Like it doesn't follow. Like none of this makes logical sense. There's a bunch of huge question marks there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think he got told the story and he misunderstood part of the story, is my guess.
As for the Canucks going into this final game again, thanks for tracking milestones and whatnot. We talked about it yesterday, but Elias Pettersson has already won the trophy for the team's top scorer, but there is a world where he gets surpassed by Philip Hronek or Brock Besser tonight.
I hope it does.
Hronek is 2 points back. Brock is 3 points back. Tiebreaker is goals, so Hronek would have to supersede him. Brock would have the tiebreaker.
Has to make up 3 points. It's a long way, but
Yeah.
nevertheless. You have the battle to be the Canucks' leading goal scorer. DeBrusk at 23. Besser on 22. And then we talked about it yesterday. It's a long shot for Drew O'Connor to get to 20 goals. He is 3 away at 17, but it's only 1 point for Drew O'Connor to get to 30 points on the season. 1 point away for Philip Roenick to 50, 2 points away for Brock to 50, and then we can go down the list here a little bit. But those are sort of the bigger ones that we'll be looking at the top of the Canucks.
I'd love Ugrin to get a couple tonight and have a 10-10 season in 51 games or whatever it is with the Canucks.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, and we mentioned this yesterday, involving that second-round pick of the San Jose Sharks that the Vancouver Canucks own in the Kiefer Sherwood trade. And that pick is in play tonight in terms of where it lands. Right now, it would be the 41st overall pick in the draft. But lots of mobility here, as Canucks News Summary points out. It can fall to 42nd. It can climb all the way to 39th, depending on what happens tonight. It can fall in 3 places, 39, 41, 42. Florida did its part yesterday with an 8-1 drubbing over Detroit. That means Florida will finish ahead of San Jose with a Sharks regulation loss tonight. On the tiebreaker, Florida has more regulation wins than San Jose. And so, and did you see Todd McClellan, the Wings coach, in his postgame last night? It was bonus-esque in terms of that's a team with championship pedigree. That's a team that showed up to compete tonight. Pretty much saying his guys did not compete
The
tonight.
good news on this front is it's the Jets' home closer.
That's it.
They've had a very disappointing season.
That's right.
They've underperformed all season long, and they would love to tell people come back next year.
That's right.
We're sorry.
As we said yesterday, you're rooting for Florida. Check. You're rooting for Seattle to beat Utah tonight. If
Seattle's facing Colorado.
Sorry,
Yeah.
St. Louis. St. Louis to beat Utah tonight. If St. Louis beats Utah tonight, they will finish ahead of San Jose, guaranteed. So you're rooting for that bit of business. Both teams are on 84 points, but St. Louis has the tiebreaker on regulation wins. And then if San Jose loses in regulation to Winnipeg tonight, the Jets will also move ahead of San Jose, also on the tiebreaker of regulation wins. And so in that scenario, St. Louis winning and the Jets beating San Jose in regulation, both Winnipeg and St. Louis finish ahead of San Jose. The Canucks now own the 39th overall pick.
And all that is all great as long as every slot means that you get a better player. But it's still ultimately about who you choose in all those slots.
True, but it could also have the possibility of trading Blake and how that pick is viewed, because it would have
Right.
more value than the 42nd pick.
Yep.
So,
yeah,
anyways.
incrementally, yep. It
Right.
does.
So you're rooting for St. Louis tonight, and you're rooting for a Winnipeg regulation win against San Jose to improve that Canucks pick best possible.
Yeah, if you were going to combine picks to try to trade up, i.e. the 39th and the Minnesota 24th, to get up to 17th or something, then those numbers start to matter. In the 30s sounds almost like a first-round pick in a lot of ways. So we'll see. A lot of good drama here on the final day of the season.
What's up with Yellow Dog these days?
The Lake Monster West Coast IPA. How about this? Loaded with strata and citra hops. It is a fabulous West Coast IPA. Very crushable. It is. It's on tap and it's ready to go in the tasting room and available in select locations across BC. The Lake Monster West Coast IPA.
The East playoffs are all set, and that's produced another round of griping about this playoff format. Here are the pairings with the conference rank in parentheses for those of you on visual platforms. The number 1 seed is Carolina. They play the number 6 seed in the Ottawa Senators. The number 2 seed is Buffalo. They play the number 5 seed in the Boston Bruins. You have this delicious Tampa Bay Montreal matchup, the number 3 versus the number 4 team
in the East. And while it's an in-state or Commonwealth rivalry, Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia, that everyone's stoked about, it is number 7 versus number 8 in the East, Blake, and one of those teams will be moving on. Now, again, you can complain about not getting the better series with the higher-ranked teams as the postseason moves along, but you do get attractive matchups in round 1 that you aren't guaranteed to get in a 1-8 conference format.
I saw this complaint about the West in Minnesota versus Dallas. And I'll say this with regards to those kinds of complaints. You want the regular season to mean something. You want division championships to mean something. Dallas and Minnesota, you don't want to face each other so early. Win the division. It's that simple. Like, winning the division means something now. Now you get the wild card teams. So that should be the retort from the National Hockey League anytime this comes up. Be better. You didn't win your division. Win the division. Then you'll be afforded the luxury of facing a poorer team.
And, of course, we're still mitigating what's going to take place in the West. We do know that Utah is going to play Vegas now. Vegas clinched the Pacific Division Championship last night with that win over Seattle, and Utah is locked into the second wild card spot. As we know, Colorado's going to be the number 1 seed. And we also know, of course, that Dallas and Minnesota are going to play each other. And should ask somebody in Minnesota this. Are they still sore about losing their team to Dallas? Like, that was the Minnesota North Stars once upon a time,
I think they're
right?
past it now, especially because they've got a good team as well. It's not like they're mired with an expansion level team. I think they're okay.
Except the Minnesota North Stars had one of the great logos and unis in the National Hockey League.
They did.
Far superior to what the Minnesota Wild have ever put out there.
Well, and North Stars is better than Stars.
Right, way better than Stars. And they have to sit there and watch all that Stars imagery down there in Dallas.
Although it is kismet that they went down to a state that has an attachment to the word star as well.
Fair enough. It worked. Just drop the North.
Yeah.
Even the Minnesota shade of green, though, is better than the current Wild shade of green.
The forest green, I don't know, but you're
It's
just
in the beholder.
You're comparing it, yeah.
Just the Minnesota North Star jersey, it always popped for me. Kind of like the Hartford Whaler jersey. And frankly, when Dallas wears the lighter shade of green, that pops for me too.
You're comparing it. I think if you didn't ever see the Minnesota North Stars, you'd say that the colors and logo and name, I think, are pretty good for Minnesota Wild. I don't mind them. Of all the...
Yeah.
You know, like...
Well, I hate singular nicknames, so Wild is...
I'm not a huge fan of it either, but...
Wild is also wild.
Like, I hate the Predators logo.
So do I.
I don't like the name either.
I hate dinosaur imagery and logos, period, for sports teams.
The attempt to be too ferocious
Raptors.
falls flat sometimes, and you're trying to be too ferocious.
Yeah. Of course, Minnesota couldn't go with Wolves because the Timberwolves were already a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Couldn't go Stars. Couldn't bring back North Stars because there was already a Stars.
Lakers.
How about this? I mean, God, like NHL teams they blow my mind in terms of what the mediocrity or not even mediocrity they're willing to put up with. The Chicago Blackhawks are extending general manager Kyle Davidson. They will miss the playoffs again this year. They will finish 31st, second to last overall.
And they're sinking like a stone. Like they are actually, if the season was 3 weeks longer, they might have caught the Canucks. Honestly, they are horrific.
They have finished 7th, 8th, and 8th, 4 eighths in the Central Division since Davidson took over as general manager. Only once have they finished outside of the basement of their division. He's getting a contract extension.
Matt, if the Canucks...
Like, you're on the Buffalo Forever rebuild.
If the Canucks win tonight, they're 3 wins back of the Blackhawks. Like...
Is Chicago done?
They're done. 3 wins back of the Canucks, and again, in December, you were thinking not necessarily playoffs for the Blackhawks, but good on them. They've got some pieces. They're better. They're treating Connor Bedard better.
Well, and I saw a team post about Connor Bedard, career high 75 points, and celebrating it. And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, career high, young player, third year, that's good. But I'm sitting there going, oh, he's not yet a point per game player, huh? And maybe that has to do with who you're surrounding him with or who you're not surrounding him with.
Yeah. Now, granted, only in 69 games, so he is above a point per game. But
playoffs. They're upon us. In fact, there's a schedule for Saturday. And the Nation Network, your ultimate playoff headquarters, from expert shows, deep dive articles, to live social updates, analytics, and fantasy insights. We cover every moment, whether it's epic goals, big hits, or game-changing plays. Nation Network has you covered, one network every moment. Check out our friends at the DFO Rundown or The Sheet with Jeff Merrick on their YouTube channels for at-large coverage of the postseason. We'll be covering it as well, but of course, always with the eye towards the Canucks in BC. Let's get into prospecting here. And this is a young man that Cam Robinson gave us a heads up about a couple of weeks ago as we were discussing who might fit for the Canucks with that second first-round pick. They have Maddox Deschanel, the Minnesota pick. Maddox Deschanel is a big centerman with the Quebec Remparts in the Quebec Maritime Junior League. And he is now the fastest riser in the 2026 NHL draft in terms of central scouting ratings. He has moved up to be the 15th ranked skater, North American skater, in central scouting's final ranking. Can I just ask a question?
mm-hmm.
I understand the central scouting folks have done what they've done forever, but why not wait until the CHL season's over and you get the final interviews and combine and all that before you put out your final rankings?
Why not amalgamate the two rankings? Like,
there's that too.
Like everybody else on the planet, everybody else amalgamates the rankings.
That's right. The NBA doesn't have like the top Euros and the top collegiate. No. Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, here's a look at the North American skater rankings. And of course, Ivar Stenberg will not be there because he's over in Europe. You got Gavin McKenna, you got Chase Reed, the big defenseman, or the quick defenseman from Sault Ste. Marie. Carson Carl's up in Prince George. Keaton Verhoff is number 4, so behind the other two defensemen. Then Daxon Rudolph, who is Braden Coots' teammate with Prince Albert. Your eyes popped when you saw Caleb Malhotra down there at 6, behind all the defensemen. Then Tynan Lawrence, the other center iceman that people expect to go high at Boston University. The Ruck Twins are not on that visual we're showing you, but they came in at 20th for Liam and 23rd for Marcus. So the central scouting folks still not as sold on the Ruck Twins as Craig J. Button and some of the others.
Well, it almost seems like this is a ranking from September.
It sometimes feels that way with central scouting, that it is not quite as responsive to the helium that you have out there in the public lists.
Because Malhotra is exactly where I would expect him to have been in October, not after the season that he's put up and the playoffs that he's put up. So it just seems a little bit delayed, and the Ruck Twins are the exact same way. The Ruck Twins just electrified all season long, have been amazing in the playoffs, and you do deserve to be rewarded for that, and you do feel bad for the star player mired on a non-playoff team. And there are great players on non-playoff teams in the CHL that get robbed of an extra time on stage. But this is it's just a sample size, and you're going to feel a lot more inclined to trust the sample size when it includes more games via the playoffs. I mean, I look at Caleb Malhotra's other rankings. I mean, he is inside the top 20, if not the top 10.
Yeah.
If everybody else is amalgamated rankings.
Well, there are some people that have doubts that Caleb can be a true number 1 centerman. And so if he's a number 2 centerman and you're putting him up against guys that you think can be top pair defensemen, you get back to the conversation of what is more valuable. And I can understand it. The international list, let's get that up as well. Ivar Stenberg, of course, is first overall, the winger from Frölunda. Albert Smits is the big Latvian defenseman playing in the German league. Oliver Savanto is a very put-together 200-plus pound two-way centerman and Tappara in the Finnish league. And Viggo Bjork, who we know is a hustle and bustle forward with Djurgårdens. The Canucks have his brother Wilson in their system. They drafted him last year. Just finished his freshman season at Colorado College. But leave that list up there for a second, Mike. Once you get past those top four, looking at Hermanson, who's a skillful winger at Modo, where the Twins came from. Pipparainen, who's a bigger right shot defenseman. Gustafsson, who's a big lanky left shot Swedish defenseman. And Normark, who's a winger with some offensive pedigree. I would suspect that one of those guys is going to be around with the Canucks' second first-round pick, the one that belongs to the Minnesota Wild.
Viggo Bjork is a name that has been around for a long, long time. I wonder if there's a possibility of a slide there for Viggo Bjork.
I'm not sure all the way down to the mid-20s.
No,
Blake. I could
might
see
be
it
a lot.
maybe outside of the top 10 or outside even the top 15. We saw Eklund, the small winger, slid last year to the Islanders, somewhere between 15 and 20. I forget where. But, boy, I would be Benson even slid, remember? Chilliwack, Zach Benson to
right now
Buffalo.
the worst rating for Bjork is Ryan Kennedy at 12 and Elite Prospects as a whole at number 13 in their consolidated.
It's a long way from there to 24 or so. Anyways, speaking of Braden Coots, his Prince Albert Raiders sweep the Saskatoon Blades in the second round of the WHL playoffs. So they are off to a conference final against the Medicine Hat Tigers and the Ruck Twins from Osoyoos. So that should be very interesting. And boy, with the Ruck Twins and the defenseman Daxon Rudolph there will be a lot of scouts watching that series.
I think I might peek
with
in on
very
that.
good draft prospects. You were telling me you quite like the WHL streaming service.
Well, they're on that Victory Plus app now, and it's very easy to download. You don't need a membership, and you can just stream all the games.
That's great.
So if you want to watch Landon Dupont and want to watch Coots, the Ruck Twins, all that, check it out.
And then lastly, from our buddy Dave Hall, Vitaly Pinchuk. We have talked about him, the top European free agent this year, playing in the KHL, has been officially eliminated from the playoffs. So his sweepstakes can begin, and there will be a sweepstakes. It will be somewhat similar to what we saw with Andrei Kuzmenko a few years ago as a guy that NHL people are quite high on. Not just in terms of being an NHL player, but an NHL offensive contributor. Like, you can find European free agents who come in and fill in checking roles and bottom pairs and things like that. But, it's a little rarer to find the European free agent who can come in and be a part of your top six and score some. And Pinchuk, for some, can do that and can even play the middle.
And unlike a lot of these guys that come over, not a 26-year-old, not a 28-year-old. This guy's going into camp, playing the first half of the season as a 24-year-old. So
how big is he listed at?
He's listed as 6'3".
Yeah, he's a big boy. I've heard the feet aren't great, but he makes up for it a little bit with hockey sense. And
those totals, we've told you, KHL does not dole out points very easily.
No,
They're very strict. For him to be over a point per game, 66 points, it's intriguing.
Let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot for all the games, home and away, pregame, postgame. You are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. And if you're looking for a venue for your next private party, check out Greta. It's got a fantastic room in the back. You're up on top of a riser. You got a private bar there. You're surrounded by screens. Watch whatever you want. The arcade, which, of course, Greta is known for, with a game for everyone. NBA Jam. Got Pop-A-Shot. Got air hockey. You got Twister. And an excellent menu of delicious street food. For more information, to book your evening, go to gretabar.com. Greta, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We will talk to Patrick Johnston here on the Vancouver Canucks. Foots and Passion speech the other day, which for many was, I want to be back. Please keep me.
That was his
a la Rick Bonus,
That
who
was
got
his
extended today. On Elias Pettersson's future, we'll also talk a little bit. Patrick's digging in a little more on the Whitecaps here and their future. We'll talk to him about that. Rob Williams stops by. We spend the entire interview with Rob talking about the possibility of Major League Baseball in Vancouver.
He plays a little devil's advocate.
He's a big fan of the idea, Rob.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to Sebastian Berhalter of Vancouver Whitecaps FC, who have a big one tomorrow against Sporting Kansas City. Not because Sporting Kansas City is any good. They're not. But because they can move into they're right now tied for first place, but tomorrow they could take the upper hand on the MLS table, on the Western Conference table, move to 7-1, force San Jose to come get them on a weekend. It is a standalone Friday night MLS game.
Yeah. Well,
So good conversation with Sebastian there.
speaking of standalone, at the end of the weekend, too, LAFC and San Jose, the two other best teams in Major League Soccer, are facing each other. So that's a doozy. If the Whitecaps hold serve, they get their win, then they can sit back and watch and see who's playing for second early in the season.
Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. Got another win last night. We're 3 for 3 this week. Now, it's not the win I'm most proud of. It was Vegas to either win or just get to overtime or a shootout, but they did that. They got the win. Small payout. I debated going with a safer pick today to try and run the week, but then I thought, nah, man. Let's let it ride. It's final Canucks game of the year. We talked about Drew O'Connor. 3 goals away from 20. Remember 2 years ago in the Canucks finale, they did everything they could to get Connor Garland the puck. He scored a hat trick to get to 20. 3 might be a whole lot for Drew O'Connor. But Drew O'Connor to score 2+ goals, and I would suspect the Canucks will feed him tonight if they can, is plus 3,300. So a very big swing on my boy, Drew O'Connor, for 2+ goals tonight in Edmonton.
I'm also
Their goaltending's pretty bad, right? Like
Yeah.
Shoot from everywhere,
I'm also going to
Drew.
give you 2 options. I just discovered late in the season this either anytime goal scorer. You get 2 guys for the price of, or for the one cost. Besser or DeBrusque scoring pays out at plus 130. And both these guys finishing well. They're in the duel for the goal scoring lead. But if you just want to push all in, and that he doesn't even have to end with the goal scoring lead, but I think Brock Besser puts a best foot forward to try.
Yeah, good call.
Plus 250
Love
for
it.
a Brock Besser anytime goal.
Every sports fan will tell you that not all games are created equal. Sometimes the excitement just isn't there. Sometimes you get a dud. Hey, it happens. But at Bet365, boring games are a thing of the past. Now there's always reason to tune in, even if the score isn't one of them. And while they can't make every game exciting, they can help fans get excited about every game. Bet365. Download the app today. Must be 19 or older, please. Play responsibly. Patrick Johnston is next. Cigars and Price from the historic Wall Center.
This segment brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers on a beautiful sunny day like this. You know what you want to do? You want to go for a drive, right? Especially the spring. It's been a long time since you just enjoyed a drive. But you need to do it in the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid. The one with the little pep. You just touch the accelerator. You're gone. Performs like a sports car. Looks like a sports car. But a very comfortable back seat, a huge hatch for all the cargo. And yes, because it is a hybrid, you got the gas tank, you can actually use that cargo space to go away. Go for a weekend away. Maybe a week. It's got that much room. Check it out right now. Red Tag Days are on until May. ShopToyota.ca.
Patrick Johnston is a columnist with the Province and Postmedia. He joins us now to discuss the Vancouver Canucks, but has also done some digging on the big Whitecaps story. We'll get to that in a moment. Hello, how are you?
Good morning. Isn't
Good
it
morning.
lovely how crisp and
Good
clear
afternoon.
it is?
Yeah,
It's just like a beautiful,
absolutely gorgeous.
It's freezing,
February day.
but it's beautiful
Well,
out.
local,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
hey. Patrick, do the Canucks deserve credit for not quitting down the stretch, or do you want to see what tonight gives in Edmonton before answering that?
I kind of actually want to wait till next fall. No, they get a little bit of credit. Listen, the team here knew where they were at, and we've talked a lot about the sort of better vibes and all that stuff going back to just after the deadline. And I think there is enough of a story there for us to certainly follow it. After the game on Tuesday, because it was jersey off their back night, it was the dressing room as it used to be and is supposed to be, where it's just everyone's there and you just kind of grab what you can, and it takes all of 10 minutes, and that's fine. It was great. So I ended up talking to a number of players because obviously they were happy that they won, and just there's the good vibes in the building, all that stuff. So basically uncover that essentially there was actually a bit of a veterans meeting involving basically the guys that Adam Foote named, as well as Kevin Lankinen, and recognizing that they needed to set a standard, right? I mean, I think it was I assume Petey was in this too, but like that they needed to really be like, there's a lot of things that have gone slack. There's a lot of reasons why they went slack. And we need to like dial in on those, and we need to help these young guys recognize that, what's going on here isn't good, and we need to start in a new direction.
It sounds like the young guys were a catalyst, though, too. Like their energy sort of brought it.
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think so. And I think the other thing to understand here is that, like, those players we're talking about, if you think about it, in the end, they were not the big culture guys before, right? They weren't the biggest personalities, but they were the guys that are here, and they care, and they do recognize. And so credit to them for that. And maybe didn't have as much of a voice before just because they weren't those guys. But now they are. They're sort of forced in that position. So, so I talked to Linus Karlsson. He said, yeah, like in the end, yes. And in the end, we had a big, just as a group, what are we going to be? And thought very long and hard about what things they needed to be better at. And clearly that was just being ready at practice and just working extra hard in the gym. I mean, I thought about, we put Kevin Lankinen up as our Masterton candidate last week from the PHWA. And one of the things that was highlighted to me by multiple guys was how Kevin Lankinen is, you walk in and Kevin's already in the gym, right? Like, guys will arrive and Kevin's one of the first guys there, and he is just meticulous and disciplined. And that's, that is the goalie thing, I suppose, but that is a lesson that they all needed to take on board. And so that, that is an example, I suppose, of standards and habits and all these kinds of things that had clearly had gotten slack. And whether that is, how the coaching staff plays into that, I mean, they can only do so much. At the end of the day, the players have to figure that out themselves. And so they've certainly built the beginning of something, but now, as I said, it's coming back next fall and carrying forward and building more and just adding.
Yeah. We were struck by Adam Foote's speech after the game on Tuesday, particularly in juxtaposition with the his refusal to answer the question about why do you deserve to be back. And then in the next media availability, it sounds like he had something prepared in terms of which was messaging about the group, but also, reflective on the coaching staff, and maybe I would like to be back. So you talk to me. What was your interpretation there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all appreciated, obviously Farhan asked the question because he wants to, do these guys, essentially what we're talking about now, like, this little run here, like this, this, especially when what we had all seen, I don't think Adam had seen the Rick Bowness rant, but we had all sort of heard what Bones was saying, and, these guys quit and all that stuff. And the fact that, sort of notionally, these guys here didn't quit, that they've picked up their socks and they did in the end do what they wanted to do, which was be a factor in the Pacific playoff race, even if they weren't making the playoffs themselves. And, as Adam said, what a great question, because now I can give you my answer, which we just was such a funny way. Well, yes, Adam, this is what we do. But no, his point was that I have a bunch of things to get off my chest, and I appreciate that you asked it this way. Although I'm sure, like I said, he didn't know that Rick Bowness had gone off. Yeah, it was in many ways sort of here. It's been a tough year, and he will not deny that, right? And a lot of things have gone badly, and I'm sure some of those things he would admit were his fault because there were choices made. And then, there are other things you just have to deal with, and injuries and players getting traded and all the other stuff going on. So yeah, that his players have at least built up the idea of taking charge, taking ownership of their own situation. But
it's a small sample size, right? It's a small sample size.
But that's it. But I think, but the question was, down the stretch here, your guys haven't quit. Like, they have kept showing up. And he was able to, that was the framing of it. And so, yeah, exactly. Like he said, listen, these guys that I'm in charge of did the job, and they didn't quit, and I'm proud of that. So
I feel like we're overstating it a little bit. I'm getting swept up in it as well. Like, as of Thursday, April the 9th, which was not that long ago, they had lost 10 of 11.
Yeah.
We are like, it is really recent here that we've had the good vibes. And hey, great that it's happened
they're
at all.
They're clinging on threads, Blake. As you know, if there's a single straw that's outside of the Bay of Hail, they will latch onto it.
And like Harm and I were talking about this yesterday on Convo. Like, he sort of, for him, he's just like, well, there's wins, right? And then, but there's like what else they're doing, and like they have tightened things up. Like they have generally been playing better. I think Curtis Douglas is a good example of a guy. Like, obviously gets his goal, and like I went up to him before the game on Tuesday, and I was just like, "So you did it, hey?" And he goes, "Yeah." Like he's done the thing that none of us have done. He's scored a goal in the NHL. and you go look at his numbers, and like he's deserving. He's actually been kind of good. In a small role, and like that's been, he stepped into a team that, as we've said, has not been winning, right? Has been struggled down the stretch. But there are bits and pieces on this roster that do say, okay, maybe there's something there. And that's the long view, because in the end, it is a process question. And obviously they need to turn that process into results next year. And that, more than anything, is, I suppose, the positive of all this is that even as they were losing 10 out of 11, they apparently were trying to figure themselves out, and they actually did get some results in the end. And yeah, they're still a bad team, and they're still 32nd in the league, and they deserve to be 32nd in the league, and that cannot be forgotten. But if you're looking for a little thread to pull on, there is potentially something there. But again, this is why I want to look back from next year, not so much right now.
You're working on a story about what went wrong.
Yeah.
We only we could fill up the whole show here, Patrick. So give me the Coles Notes version.
Yeah. Do a whole series. I mean, it's looking at sort of the course of the season and bumps along the way. And obviously they started well, but then, remember they had a game where not only did Filipino get possibly his career ended by Tom Wilson. Now, Filipino was in the room yesterday, but anyway, Teddy Bluger got hurt. Remember, like, they lost two centers, bang, bang. And I don't think they were setting the world afire, and there were certainly warning signs even then, but that was a big challenge to overcome. And in many ways they didn't. And that's one. And then obviously the frustration setting into the season, and Quinn clearly getting frustrated, and that becoming a thing. And then he got traded. And then it's the reeling of, oh my God. Remember they won right after, and they're on this road trip, and everyone's like, oh, don't screw this up. Like, they're finally in a moment where they're actually going to have to accept their fate and try to get a good draft. And then of course that died, and then we get in, okay, now, it's a real rebuild. I don't remember what the actual date was, but we're going to trade everyone. I think, Rutherford tells me, and we're going to trade everyone. And then they do start trading everyone. And then you get to the deadline and everyone's just like, okay, I guess we're here. And, the wonderful Brock Besser line, it would be the trade deadline if my name wasn't out there. And everyone's kind of going, okay, am I going to be here Saturday morning? And then those that were there Saturday morning, apparently, like I said, had this meeting. And then they just kept losing, but they felt better about themselves. And yeah, so it's been I've described it as probably the weirdest season I've covered to date, just because it started with this kind of glimmer of belief that maybe we can pull it all together, that last year was a mirage and this new group of guys, could pull it together. And of course, it was the complete opposite. And yet, along the way, Jake DeBrusk has 23 goals, and Brock Besser has 20 whatever goals, and it's just this bizarre. And then they lost that Demko. There are so many things that have happened this year that explain the story. And I don't think they were doomed from the start. But also, in hindsight, we knew this team just wasn't good enough the way it was assembled, and that it was time to move on and blow it up.
Moving on next year, getting excitement for next year would be predicated on they're not going to be big players in the UFA market. We'll see if there's a big trade this summer, but I don't believe they will be. There's nothing much to buy. He's still on the Alex Tuck train.
Sure.
But the most interesting part about next season is going to be to see who can make a big step. And I don't have any hockey examples from the last few years, but we're going to have Seb Berhalter on the show coming up later.
Okay.
Seb makes that big jump last year as a 23-year-old guy.
Yeah.
Is there a Seb Berhalter candidate on the Canucks? Is it? I mean, Zeev Buium's the talk of the town for the last week, but can he do that for next season and just be like, oh, holy crap, all of a sudden he's a player?
Well, I mean, he's only 20.
Yeah.
I mean,
that might not be for 2 more years for him, right? Like he might do that in 2 years. Yeah.
And that's actually a really interesting comparison. Remind me, when did Seb first come here? Was it 22?
Oh, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago? Yeah, 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, honestly, like right away being like, who's this? Like, obviously knowing his name, but like, who's this? And there were just things. The motor was there clearly for him.
But I thought he was going to be Russell Teibert. Honestly, that's where I thought Berhalter was going. Just like a guy with a motor, safe, you can use him, blah, blah. Like, I thought that's what his ceiling was.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair. It's not. No, he's vastly progressed beyond that. I think, I can't put my finger on it, but I remember thinking about, wow, this guy's actually a very interesting player. Like, you know what? You're right. I don't think I expected him to become this star player. I don't know if I thought Teibert was the comparison, but like, thinking about the growth of players, especially like Buium's age, is an important one to recognize, right? Like he's still got a couple years literally of like sort of that man strength growth
for sure.
And player peak doesn't start till they're 20, usually Seb Berhalter's age, 23, I think about that goal he scored on Tuesday and just everything that was, and everything about the play and the Canucks exploiting the moment because it was Byfield breaks a stick. Like you're attacking a team that is essentially down half a player, and the way they moved and instinctually like attacked and then kept rotating, a lot of 1-2s, right? Like, pass and move. And like it was a remarkable sequence, and the way he saw it was very much exactly what we know he is offensively, right? Like he is a really wonderful offensive player. And so the challenge is now, can he do the other stuff? And like, if you bring in Manny or whoever as the coach, the sort of defensive base a guy like him needs is really important. Like that's kind of everything. So there's him, obviously everyone's talking about Kudryavtsev. I think the point that is important to remember with him, like, he's likely a 6-7 if he makes it. But it's interesting having watched him come up from a not foot system, right?
We talked about that yesterday too. Yeah.
And like, let's be fair, a pretty terrible season in Abbotsford, right? But he's managed to be somehow this sort of pillar of strength and then sea of chaos.
Yes.
And So that's interesting. I don't think he's a big, solution to the big picture, but like,
He might be. I
that's
don't
an
know.
example of the kind of thing that maybe he does come from nowhere and is a solution. And the Canucks need someone to come from nowhere, because certainly the young guys that were there this year had, for the most part, had tough seasons.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, I've said this before. I think the big truth is that is another reason why you have to consider the coach, because
That's good. That's a good column for you. Rank the big jump young players. Like, I think there's a pretty big non-zero chance of Liam Ogren scoring 20
I was
next
just
year.
going to say, I think you guys are missing Liam Ogren. I think Liam Ogren is the guy for next year, because Liam Ogren is 22 years
That's
old.
right.
He's not 20 years old. He's not 21 years old like Verlander.
Yeah.
And also, as we know, defensemen take a longer time to mature. Now, I would argue that Buium does have to take a significant step last year, because let's face it, it is only 12 points in 44 games this year, right? Like, if Zeev Buium is just going to be an average defender, then he's got to be a 40-point defenseman, right?
Yeah.
And there's a long way from 12 to 40. Granted, 12 and a half seasons, but there's still a long way from 24 to 40.
Yeah.
But and because of his importance to the project going forward, right? Like, he's got to be your top pair left side defenseman and power play quarterback.
Yeah.
But Liam Ogren is the guy who, in terms of age, in terms of physical tools, which are not lacking in the least, that is a man.
Oh, yeah.
That is an
Yeah,
NHL body, shot,
yeah.
all those things. Yeah. If he pops next year, I think you're feeling a lot better about the Vancouver Canucks rebuild. Because if he pops next year, you're talking about a top 6 winger, and that's check one of the big needs accounted for.
And the least amount of responsibility as a winger, right? Like, he doesn't need to be as cerebral as a top 4 defenseman or a center.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought him up, Matt, because he was actually another one I talked to in this whole thing. Because, like, you want to talk about a guy who's kind of been their most consistent winger. I mean, obviously not scoring at quite the rate that DeBrusk or Besser has, but every line he's been, I would say almost every night, whatever line he's been on has been the best line. And I think he has found his way in a sort of a skating and style way that really does matter. I think you're absolutely right, Matt. And a guy that's found some comfort here. Marco Rossi, I talked to Marco Rossi about him a couple of weeks ago, and Marco said, well, in Minnesota, he just didn't really have a role. Like, they just didn't give him a chance. John Hines doesn't like young players, and that's something I know. That's not what Rossi was saying. Mm-hmm. And here, and I asked him, he said, yeah, no, I just kind of feel like I've been let to play and just play to my instincts, and he's done well. And, the other thing about him is physically, like, he's a solid dude. Like, he's thick. He's got big shoulders, and, he's only 6 feet tall, but he's just a powerful, he is like Brock Besser. He's a powerfully built guy. He's obviously a much better skater than Besser. Maybe doesn't have quite the hands that Besser does, but, like, there is smarts there. And look, they're asking him to kill penalties, and, like, that was probably the right call. Like, he is the kind of guy that is going to turn into a very useful two-way winger, assuming it plays out the way you need him to play out, right? He's there. That's maybe the best comparison to Berhalter. Like, there's just a lot of really good stuff there, and if you can just kind of get 5% better, that's going to be a heck of a player.
I want to move quickly through a couple of other topics with you, but Caitlin Bird Pedersen announced yesterday on her social media that her and Elias have experienced a second miscarriage now this season. Does this add context? Does this explain more of Elias's struggles this season?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, especially when the first one happened, like Candace and I dealt with that at the start. It's not easy. It happens to a lot of people. Her choice to speak openly about it, I commend her for that. I mean, Candace made the same choice and discovered a lot of women who were sort of thankful that she was speaking that way. So first of all, there's sort of real power in what she's doing. Obviously, it's great loss and a massive heartbreak. I mean, it's off the ice. Yeah, it's not been an easy season for him. So I don't pretend that, I wrote what I said about him, which is he is at a loss for what's happened in terms of his on ice performance. at the same time, like he keeps working hard. He's this defensive dynamo, right? Like it's the one thing. There was this, I think I mentioned something, but there was this 2 Saturdays ago. He's on this rush coming down. It's a 2-on-1. He's in basically the same spot as where he was when he scored that first electric goal, October 2018 against the Flames, and he doesn't shoot. So like I don't. Yeah, I mean. Yes, it's been a difficult year, but he's also, like at the end, I don't want to dismiss the tragedy, but he's a grown up. Like, his inability to score.
So
I have a hard time connecting a line from that.
Yeah, I see a lot of it on social media, and it's not mutually exclusive to have empathy for Elias and for Caitlin and their family and what they've gone through this year. But it is also factual that Elias's struggles predate all of this, and the questions about his work ethic and practice habits and all of that also predate all of this.
I mean, I suppose the flip side on all this is something that, Teddy Bluger and I talked about, and Kevin Lankin and I talked about, and both of them became fathers in the last year. And if that is something that happens to you, it is a life-changing event in a way that you do not understand until it happens.
Yep.
And
it is, guys. It makes it a lot harder for him to remedy the problem that was pre-existing. Like you can say it's not the cause of the problem, but it makes fixing the problem a lot harder when you don't feel very good.
Well, because it focuses what's important in life, right?
Yeah.
And needless to say, I mean, this stuff is 10 out of 10, and hockey is somewhere down the list. So.
And all they're feeling is the absence, right? So it's like they so you hope for them that they get the opposite, because that will add immense joy to their life, and they in a way that they don't and focus and all that stuff. So like that's the long run. I hope for them that they get to become what they clearly want to be. So and I think it, in all likelihood, will benefit him, because it does provide that focusing thing that. You reset yourself anyway. And
I hope they both keep hope alive. My mother had 2 miscarriages before me, was told you'll never have children, had a miscarriage between me and my brother, was told you'll never have another, and here we are. Lastly, you've done some digging on the Whitecaps story, and I mean, we're almost at the point here, Patrick, where no news is not good news. What can you tell us?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one to sort of assemble, because you can sort of, like I said, I think to you guys before, like you go back 20 years and you look at all sort of how the idea's been there forever. And there's a good reason why this team wanted its own stadium, because at the end, it's not just that it's a great place for your soccer team, but it lets you do all these other things, which is what in many ways the Major League Soccer is built on. But yes, you're right. Like there is nothing. They're stuck. Like there's no. They as they've made clear, they've had a lot of people show interest in buying the team, and then they look under the hood and they discover that the revenues are a disaster, and the sort of the vision is limited. Not the possibilities are limited unless things change. And so whether that's they get a chance to run the stadium, I mean that in the short term. It's a bet worth making. I mean, the quick math is if you think about what Ravi Cal and the $1.5 million that the province is giving the Whitecaps off the profits of their game, you do the quick math. Last year, the Caps brought in, give or take, 600,000 fans. Strip out 100,000 of those because those are cheap tickets or freebies that the team would admit to. So you get to 500,000. So that's 500,000 fans over the course of the year. Profits $1.5 million. That means that you're making $3 a fan. And I think the Whitecaps, from their position, would say, well, we think we can do better. And so at a certain level, I go, well, okay, why provincial government? Why don't we let them have that chance? Like, isn't that worth it? Like, why do you want to own a stadium? I'm still not clear on that. And the other thing is, I suppose that the counter that I guess the government will give them is like, well, we want it to be a public amenity and blah, blah. I'm like, well, that would be in their interest.
I completely, Patrick. I completely understand why the province of British Columbia wants to own that facility and, most importantly, own that plot of land. That makes infinite sense to me.
Yeah.
What I don't get is why they set up a quasi-governmental arm to run that place when there are experts in the field who can run it far more efficiently to the benefit of BC taxpayers and tenants. Like that's the part that is mind-numbing to me.
Well, and there's a way to do this too, guys. You give them a few years or 5 years or whatever to a lease to run it, and if it doesn't work out, if it doesn't do what they say, then you can cut bait. But if it does.
Yeah, there's a lot in this, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to write it, because there's a lot of different items, and maybe I just do a huge omnibus thing. But like one of them is like Eintracht Frankfurt played in a stadium that is essentially the sister stadium of the Whitecaps. They've got the same roof, and it was a similar setup, from what I've been told, and it was a municipally owned stadium. And I think about 5 years ago, Eintracht Frankfurt went to this. Can we run the stadium? We'll pay you. Basically, give us a 99-year lease. Or whatever, 25-year lease or something, and we will let us see if we can generate bigger revenues, and they have. So like, it's just there's a lot of bits here. There's a lot of things that there's still lots of dangling ideas, and I still want to believe that there's ideas that can be tried for at least the short term. In the long run, they would like to build their own stadium. I'm deeply skeptical it happens at Hastings Park because there's a lot of complications there. But then again, that's right now the only really viable option. I mean, Greg Kerfoot still owns that plot of land on the waterfront, but the last plan had it as being potentially adding to the convention center, and I don't think there's real interest in putting a stadium there. I think a lot about the first plot that they were talked about to the city, which has never been discussed very much, but Main and Terminal, which right now the city wants to make into a, quote, tech hub. And as I talked to a buddy of mine who's worked in provincial politics, and I told him that it was going to be a, quote, tech hub. And he said, there's nothing cities love more than talking about having tech hubs. Yeah. But it's just, so anyway, that would be a great spot for a stadium. I don't think it's going to happen there, but it made sense why they first floated it. So
my experience, Patrick, growing up in Canada, Ontario, which is a Silicon Valley North, as it's called, is you don't create a tech hub. A tech hub creates right? Yeah. Like tech companies look and go, where can we set up blah 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 that's worthwhile in terms of cheap land. Ease of commute for our employees, desirable city, like what Amazon has done on the north end of downtown Seattle, right? Like, that was more about Amazon than it was about any politician.
And you can bet Axel knows about the Eintracht Frankfurt example too.
I haven't actually talked. This is what I mean. This is one I need to talk more with him about.
Yeah. All right.
Danke schön. Yep.
See you, boys.
Sebastian Price from the Historic Wall Center. We're joined now by the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. Rob Williams here on Sebastian Price. Rob, how are you?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Good.
Just one more game to go?
Yeah, one more game to go, buddy. I read all of your tweets about Mayor Sims' Major League Baseball proposal, and I could just sense the glee in your fingertips, Rob. Was I mistaken, or do I read you correctly?
I love a rumor. I love a scuttlebutt. I love even more. I love a report.
Outrageousness
about a team coming to potentially coming to Vancouver, like us getting more major pro teams. Like I'm all about it. It must be about 10 years ago that I did a deep dive into like, could Vancouver support an NBA team? Followed kind of along, anytime NBA commissioner or MLB commissioner has either mentioned Vancouver, mentioned Canada as potential landing spot for another team. And I feel like every time that I write something or put something out or something like this comes out, it's met with the same reaction from people in Vancouver. And that is, no way, Vancouver can't support it. We're not a good sports city. We can't do this. We can't do that. We're too small. There's not enough business, corporate support. There's this and that and the other thing. And I'm always sort of mystified by it because I'm like, well, who cares? It's not your money if it doesn't work. Like, let's try it out. I'm all down for trying it out. As long as the government's not like saying that they're going to be like putting in billions of dollars to build new stadiums or something else. If there's a billionaire out there that wants to bring more pro sports to Vancouver, sign me up. So I'm definitely all on board for this. I'd love nothing more than to see it happen. I'll believe it when I see it. I think I'm like a lot of people, but wouldn't it be great to have another major pro team in Vancouver?
It would. It would.
Can I address one of those things? First of all, I'm a pessimist to this. I don't think MLB is coming to Vancouver. But I did hear the head office thing come up. And I think in this day and age, that's a canard. That is a reason why the Vancouver Grizzlies left 1.0,
Yep.
or the only 10 they left, is back then in that economy of 27 years ago or whatever it was, that was a thing that mattered. Head offices aren't a thing anywhere anymore. There's no such thing as head offices for a lot of companies. Where the company is rooted means nothing. I think people are far more astute now about visibility in a city of 4 million, and it doesn't matter where the company is based out of. It's easy to contact the head offices for any other. And I think that is a 25-year-old excuse, a reason. I think it was valid back then. I don't think that in and of itself is the problem with the MLB to Vancouver story.
Yeah, well, I mean, I won't claim to be an expert on the like corporate finances and how that affects a major pro team, but my thought immediately goes to like, who has the jersey sponsor, right? It's TD, it's Rogers on the ice, right? Like Rogers sponsor those things. So those are not based in Vancouver, but obviously like major corporations in Canada.
Montreal-based Bell sponsored the Whitecaps for
right.
Ever.
But the road sweater is Clio, right? Clio is a company that is based in Vancouver. Clio could sponsor the Calgary Flames or the Oilers or any other team if they want to, some team in the U.S., but they're not. They sponsor the team in Vancouver. So I do think there's an element there where your home office is located. Probably ends up juicing a bit more the teams that are based locally. The CEOs want to like wander down to the stadium that they can go and visit themselves. I could see that being a part of it, but some of the work I've done on this, like just looking at like how like it, because sometimes people
Can
say,
I just stop you for a second, Rob?
Yep.
Can I just stop you for a second? So the Canucks helmet sponsor is Next Gen Energy. They're based in Vancouver. As we discussed yesterday, it's the most expensive season ticket in all of sports because you're buying 81 games, which heaps more pressure on your corporate base.
Yeah.
So head offices and corporate buys of season tickets are more important in baseball than they are in other sports.
I thought we were just talking about sponsors rather than butts and seats.
Oh,
here.
okay. It's all revenue, but yeah. Put it this way. That whole conversation you guys had, I would fundamentally disagree.
What the Vancouver Canucks have proven is there is no shortage of exorbitantly rich people here in Vancouver.
That part is true. Part is true.
Those people are available.
That part is true.
To be suite owners and such.
I can completely understand. It's $3 million, not $4, Blake. But I completely understand if Rob Manfred and the baseball owners are looking around and going, holy cow, is there some money in Vancouver? And holy cow, is their hockey team atrocious, and yet still they get 18,000 people in the building. That part of it I get. Sorry, Rob, go ahead on your research.
No, yeah, and you know what? Like, I think when we talk about NBA, we look at every time that the NBA hosts an exhibition game here in Vancouver, and you can see the reaction from the local fans who are clearly dialed into it. We don't have MLB exhibition games in Vancouver, but you've got the Seattle example over and over to be able to see, like, do people in this part of the world like baseball? Well, seems like yes, they do very much so. There's a ton of interest in the Blue Jays in these parts. So there's that. The research I did was just sort of like, I think I always think of Vancouver as being kind of small to have another team. You look at the population, and I look at like metro population, like not just like the city of Vancouver itself, but also like extending out into Surrey and beyond that whole area. Metro Vancouver is now over 3 million people. And when you compare it to, like, it's never going to be New York. It's never going to be LA. It's never even going to be Seattle. But can we be St. Louis? St. Louis has an NHL team. St. Louis has a baseball team. I know that there's a different level of baseball culture in St. Louis, but look at these teams. Like St. Louis is 2.9 million people. Milwaukee is the smallest, 2.1. Cincinnati, 2.3. But also, we're not talking about taking away one of those teams from Major League Baseball. Who is Vancouver up against right now to get an MLB team? The commissioner effectively has said that he would like to have two teams, one in the East, one in the West. So you're not competing with Nashville then, because Nashville's in the East. You're competing with Salt Lake City, 2.9 million, effectively same size city. They've got NBA and NHL already. Maybe it's America, so baseball means something different there, perhaps. Are they competing with the other teams or the other cities that have been mentioned? San Jose, you're adding another team into the Bay Area.
Portland.
Does Austin count as a Western team that's in Texas? I don't think it didn't sound like Rob Manfred from what he said in the past. It sounded like he'd like to have someone like West, not like in Central.
Portland.
So Portland, of course, 3.3 million. So to me, you're
Is it
competing with
3.3?
Portland.
Really?
That big, huh? Oh, wow.
According to like it depends on what you're looking at, right? Like,
But still,
the census area that is
Right.
what I tried to find the biggest kind of like metro area
Biggest
that
perimeters.
occurs. I found 3.3. I don't know. You go to Portland. Vancouver's a superior city to Portland, right?
Portland feels like it's a 1 million. Like I've seen a fair amount. It feels like it's 1 million.
Yeah,
Like it's crazy.
Good research. It's a 72-cent dollar.
Doesn't help.
And back to your original point, Rob. Billionaire wants to spend his own money, take in Canadian revenues for the most part, pay his expenses in U.S. dollars, and lose 30 points on every dollar. God bless him. But that's, I would suspect, is an issue because that has been an issue for even Canadian NHL teams historically. But, like Rob, even if there is an owner who has all of this money, and as we talked about yesterday on the show, it would pretty much have to be a name because you're talking about someone who would have to be like north of $5 billion net worth to be able to do this alone. There could be consortiums. Talk to me about stadium, brother. Because the mayor name-checked the PNE and he name-checked False Creek. Okay. Those are expensive parcels of land, although one is publicly owned, and the Whitecaps have license to go out and look at developing it. Talk to me about stadium and whether you see a solution there.
Yeah, I was just trying to dig up the specific words that Ken Sim used just when referencing the interest, because he said there was credible interest, but they also mentioned that there were confidential conversations. So it seemed like there was things that he knew that he wasn't necessarily telling us, and was saying that this was going to be coming out.
Rob, we believe he has been approached by a prospective group that has at least some American. We don't know if there's any Canadians involved, but we know there's some.
And they've actually paid physical visits too.
Yeah.
And I've shared this on Twitter a couple days ago. Like this didn't just pop up overnight, right? Like
Nope.
and people I think are aware of that. I'd heard some, I'd heard things in recent, before this announcement came out that there was something coming on this file, but what exactly was less clear.
We heard about it in the fall, Rob, and I'm just surprised that we're hearing about it now.
Well,
I would have thought the due diligence would have scared these people away.
I'm surprised that the mayor chose to be the public face of this without an ownership group by his side, or prospective ownership group by his side. Because, needless to say, there are so many hurdles here, ownership and stadium being the two big ones. But at least if you have the ownership group by your side and you have an ongoing effort to redevelop a parcel of publicly owned land for stadium and entertainment purposes with the Whitecaps, then I could see the bigger picture. But if when the person's not there, when it's still a prospective ownership group in the closet, that just it wouldn't make it real enough for me as a politician to want to go out and be the face of something that looks kind of pie in the sky, because it sort of hurts the political brand a little bit. It looks unserious, if you know what I mean.
Totally get what you're saying. The one thing that this quote is one that stuck out to me. When he was talking about who had an interest or whatnot, or talking about ownership, he said, "What I think people should realize is the nature of sports ownership. Professional sports teams, it's global now. You can have local interest with partners." So I wonder what that means, right? Does that mean, because I've gone through the list when we were looking at who could buy the Vancouver Whitecaps, like how many billionaires are from this area that have an interest in sports that are kind of in the running, and it's a pretty short list from what I can gather. But what if there's someone that's not from, what if there's someone locally that has an interest in buying a team, but doesn't have the money to be the majority owner? If they have a friend elsewhere that has the money, I wonder if that's how this works. And
Maybe.
Obviously, and the other thing is, like, you got to buy the team, but you've also got to build a stadium. Like, I think nobody thinks that BC Place is the spot for an MLB team here, right?
So, like, if you were to tell me somebody like Phil Anschutz, who has massive sports properties, but as I understand it, does not own a baseball team, right? Like, he owns the LA Kings and he owns a bunch of other sports properties, wants to add a baseball team to his portfolio and wants to own it here in Vancouver. Giddy up. Let's go, right?
Yeah.
But if you're talking to me about someone who isn't already in one of the big four sports clubs or like English Premiership, sort of that level of guy, and doesn't have the money but is looking for someone to partner to make, then the pie in the sky just gets even further away, right? So It's got to be somebody consequential. I'm not sure a person who doesn't have the money and wants to partner gets this thing over the line. And Rob, that's to the degree that there's even an open bidding process to begin with. Like, as we've seen with the NBA and more recently with the NHL, these weren't open expansion processes. They knew what cities they wanted to go to. They knew who they wanted to own the teams. And that's how it proceeded. So,
But under that description, Anschutz, AEG, as they're called, that would be the kind of partner that MLB would be like, yeah, that's the kind of group we want.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I'm saying. So, like, unless you've got one of those people in the fold committed to doing it, then all you are is a stalking horse and leverage to drive up the price for the cities and the owners who are going to get it.
Unless Anschutz is willing to come here. And right now, Anschutz is still looking for a cornerstone team. Like, they've got the Kings, the Galaxy, and they've got a piece of the Lakers, but it's only a piece, a minority stake.
Well, he's got the Kings. He's the full owner of the
I know,
Kings.
but that's the NHL. That's the, it's not Major League Baseball.
I mean, they own Coachella. They've
we're not worried about them.
They've got a very big sports entertainment
but
portfolio.
It's a lot. It's like a DEL team. It's a Swedish hockey team.
Yep.
It's a Swedish football club. It's they need a cornerstone.
Going back to the NBA example, though, when we were talking about Vancouver, it always seemed, in recent years, it seemed like kind of a foolish exercise because they clearly were going to go to Seattle and Vegas, right? And that looks like that's where they're gonna land, and that's where the NBA wants those teams. Makes perfect sense. Well, like, Vancouver's not up against a Seattle-Vegas situation here, right? Like, if Vancouver, because the A's are going to Vegas already, I think if it was Vancouver up against Vegas for an expansion team, you'd feel less bullish on their chances. But they're not up against a team like that. Like, is MLB just like, oh, we have to be in Salt Lake City, we have to be in Portland? I don't know. It doesn't strike me as those don't strike me as two places where you have to be.
Quite fair.
So what if Vancouver? What if they're what if Vancouver is a place that they want to be? I don't know. I'm not saying that this is a slam dunk spot for MLB or that anyone is like that, or that they're the front runner even. But do we have a chance? If someone is willing to spend the money, I don't see why we don't have a chance.
Okay. Let me just ask you this. And I mean, gosh, this could be a question posed on NW, but the mayor is throwing all his support, all his efforts and energies, or at least fronting the idea of Major League Baseball in Vancouver when you've got a pretty urgent situation with the soccer team in Vancouver. Yeah. I mean, is there political consequences to all of this? Is he just trying to basically distance himself from what could happen to the Whitecaps here and make it look like he's a fan? Because we were talking yesterday, Rob, like the mayor's office may have polling that suggests otherwise, but I can't imagine the Bring Baseball to Vancouver is a big voting block in October at the election. But you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I will say to his credit, I mean, they've effectively given the Whitecaps the place to build a stadium. Like anytime the Whitecaps are ready to build a stadium, like the mayor has rolled out the red carpet for that. They had the media conference. I was there, like at City Hall, saying they've got this plot of land, at Hastings Racecourse. They can build it. Again, the problem the Whitecaps have is the same problem that the baseball team might have is who's going to pay the money, right? And that's what this all comes down to. We don't know who this person is or people are behind, potentially getting, trying to bring MLB to Vancouver. We know right now there's nobody that's been willing to step up and buy the Vancouver Whitecaps or build the stadium. So I don't know. Is it one or the other? I don't know that it necessarily is. I mean, I would love nothing more than I'd love nothing more than to see MLB come to Vancouver, but I'd also be absolutely devastated if the Whitecaps left the city. I don't see why we can't have both, particularly with the Whitecaps, moving to maybe this would be a good part about them moving to a different schedule, playing more in the winter, is they wouldn't have to compete with the new Vancouver baseball team.
Well, yeah. And if you're going to be bringing in a quadrillionaire who is going to lose money for fun, then buy both the teams and build a crazy state-of-the-art stadium that converts to baseball, from baseball to soccer. I mean, the technology is there.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about this, going like, well, hey, how come they're buying baseball? I mean, it depends who's buying the team, right? What if the guy buying the team is a baseball fan and not so into soccer? What if this person or people think that MLB is a good business to get into and not so keen on MLS, at least as currently constructed at BC Place? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's probably 4 or 5 people in British Columbia who could make this happen. Jimmy Pattison probably being the most notable or the most known. There's a Thompson heiress who lives out in Victoria. But like even rich people in BC that some would know, by name, couldn't afford to do this on their own, or would be putting a substantial portion of their, like a Chip Wilson would be pretty taxed to be able to do this. A Ghilardi would be pretty taxed to be able to do this, because you're looking at like $4 to $5 billion on the low end in terms of startup. So what I will give it is this: Vancouver is an intoxicating city. People come here and they fall in love. So is it possible that there is a billion, capital B, multi times over,
triple B,
yeah, who has come to Vancouver, looked around and went, holy cow, I would love to spend more time there. I would love to be able to set up there, open a business there. What did the city? Oh,
baseball or soccer? Let's do that.
Start a restaurant.
That's where I
Start a restaurant.
that's where I think the hope pretty much lies. That somebody with an obscene amount of money has fallen in love in this community and wants to bring baseball here or wants to save the soccer team. I think that's what we're down to here.
Or some oil money wants in to the Canadian
You mean
market.
the Saudis? The
Yes,
PIF wants to invest here?
Yeah, maybe that.
Thank you, Rob.
I'll take the money from anywhere, guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Oh boy, you're gonna regret saying that. Yeah.
That's
Okay, maybe I won't. Okay. Maybe not anywhere. Maybe,
exactly.
The wheels are going in that.
that's Blood Money Rob Williams joining us here from the Daily Hive.
I'll keep it to sports.
Till next week, Rob.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Tomorrow night, BC Place, 7:30. Sporting Kansas City is the opponent for your 6-1 first place Vancouver Whitecaps FC. And we're joined by their midfielder par excellence, Mr. Sebastian Berhalter. How are you?
Good. That's a nice word. I've never heard that one before.
Yeah. Well, you've earned it, bro. This has been awesome again this year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the
the beat's gone on here. Sebastian, was there any doubt in your mind that this team would come back stronger than ever after a fantastic season in 2025?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't any doubt. I think in the beginning we were kind of starting to figure it out and figuring out how we wanted to play and what was the best way to kind of go about things. But in terms of doubt, we have guys that want to win. So I think, and then we have a culture that promotes winning. So there wasn't any doubt with it.
How did you guys establish this culture? Because you were a good team previously, but you weren't like a top of the table. Guys come in and just the beat goes on, lose guys to injuries, the beat goes on. How did that culture get established in your club?
Yeah, I think it's something that from the moment as long as I've been here, I feel like that since that day it's been building. And, I think guys have came in and, added to that culture. And, I think the first 3 years I was here, first 4 years, it wasn't exactly what we wanted, but I think there was little things happening that kind of were steering towards the right direction. And then I think Jesper kind of brought it, kind of unlocked it for us. And, I think even on the field side, everyone just understood how much better they can become. And that was something that motivates players and makes people want to do those little things, those extra steps, those extra, whatever it is to make the place, in the training ground better, the stadium better, and that, we want to put on a show for the fans and we want to be entertaining. And I think this is something that because we've known each other for so long, a lot of the core group, that now it's we have each other's backs and we've seen each other in the good moments and the bad moments and, everything in between. So we just, we really just enjoy playing with each other.
took a while for teams to, I think, recognize that you were a top of the table team last year. Maybe middle part of the year, you started to get sort of that treatment. Now you start this year, though, and everybody just thinks, okay, Whitecaps are best team in the league. Have you noticed teams play you differently now that they know you are a top-of-the-table team? Or is it tougher to do what you guys are doing, even though you're still doing it at 6-1? But do you find it's tougher to do it now?
No, not really. I think last year I feel like it was maybe hard in the sense that we were just new. We were just trying to figure out what Jesper wanted and, going through different moments that we just haven't experienced before. And last year was a great, run of so many games and so many competitions that, I feel like this year we know when teams sit in low block, what we need to do. We know what teams, have a good transition or, want to have the ball, we can defend more. And I feel like that's, one of our strengths is that, we're versatile and that we're dynamic in our principles. It's not a set in stone thing that this is the way we have to play. And if we don't play this way, Jesper is going to, freak out. It's a dynamic, ever flowing, form of football. So it's fun to be a part of.
With all these home games to start the season, has it been a talking point? Hey, we've got to bank these points, or are you just going out and trying to win the game that's in front of you?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to go out and win the game that's in front of us. I think, regardless if it happens or doesn't happen, we're always, I feel like in a spot that we can win any game, So, it hasn't been this big overarching theme. It's just we want to win the game that's in front of us.
I want to ask about a couple of your teammates, if you don't mind, Seb. But I love the part of your answer on culture about the individual improvement because, of course, that's the stuff that happens in the dark, right? Away from the cameras, away from the match day and all the spotlight. And at this time last year, the conversation around your club was, my goodness, has Sebastian really improved? What a player he is turning into. And we're saying a lot of the same things about your teammate Jeevan Bodwell this year. We've asked a couple of your teammates already about young Jeevan and his improvement this year. A word or two about your teammate here, the local boy. And
maybe your protege, too.
Yeah, exactly. And the strides that he has taken in his career so far this season. He's
incredible. He's such a good player, and we've always known he's a good player. He's one that, he's such a nice kid and such a, quieter kid. And he's, I think, he's going to be a very good player and, hopefully help this club for years to come. He's someone that works hard and, he gets the game. And, I think they're telling him to, maybe not be as passive so much and take more risk because he has the quality, he has that quality to take the next steps. And, he still has time to develop physically. And, you see his understanding of the game at such a young age is super high. And the way he can drive with the ball and just his overall understanding is something that is super impressive. And, I forget that he's, 19 years old. I treat him like he's a normal veteran player. So I love playing with him. And because I know he's going to work hard, he's going to run, but then he also has quality, and that's all you can ask for.
And this newcomer, Caicedo, I mean, he's arresting television. The speed is just intoxicating. A word or two on what Bruno can mean to this team, because needless to say, he can fly.
Yeah, I think day one, he doesn't speak a lot of English, and he came into me and said, look, in Spanish, anytime you get the ball, I'm going to run, and that's something that you don't get a lot from new guys. And, he has that ambition, and he wants to be, keep getting better. And it doesn't matter that he doesn't speak English. He's telling me, look, like, you're the guy that's going to give me the ball, give me the ball. And I love that. I love that from a guy that's coming in and the confidence. And yeah, he's quality. He still needs to improve in consistency. I think, especially in training, I think he's, will be up and down. And I think that's normal for young guys and guys that come over, that they got to show that in training has got to be the most important thing to get those minutes on the field. But yeah, you've seen what he can do in games, and, he's a good player for sure.
Yeah, he speaks the language of soccer, to say the least.
Your play shows that you're focused on the Whitecaps, so there's no doubt about that. But you are a human being. What do you think of at night when the World Cup pops into your brain? How much does that try to weasel its way in?
Yeah, it tries, but I don't let it. It's something that there's no reason to. I'm playing for the Whitecaps right now, and I just want to win games here. And I think that's, for me, the best chance I have of making that U.S. team is just to worry about think about what I'm doing here and just trying to get better. And if I don't make the team, it doesn't mean I'm a bad player. So that's something that I need to realize and understand, that this isn't the end all be all. It's an amazing thing to be part of a World Cup team, but it doesn't change who I am overnight. And I'm still going to keep doing the same things and just keep trying to be better.
There's obviously no path to the U.S. playing at BC Place, but it's a World Cup venue, and you guys have been seeing these crowds at Whitecaps matches so far this season that I think is surfing a little bit of that wave that people are pretty excited about. You guys, they're excited about the World Cup is coming, and do you feel like the sport is cresting, not only in this city, but in North America right now?
Yeah, in our city, 100%. I mean, 5 years ago when I first came, I couldn't, but most people didn't know what the team was. They didn't know we had a soccer team. That was the people. I was like, do you guys know we have a soccer team? Like, no, Whitecaps are no, and then now it's like, oh, who do you know in the Whitecaps? How many games you've been to? And it's such a different feel, and it makes me so proud to be a part of the team where, this team's been around for a long time, and we've shifted the culture to, look, this is a team that everybody knows, and it's just whether or not you're going to the games or not. So that's something that makes me proud, and it's hopefully, it still has a long way to go, but to see that development over the last 5 years is something that, I wished on day one, and, hopefully it can keep going.
And with that success comes interest and opportunities, Seb. The whispers are out there. The rumors are out there that maybe he's a guy one day who's going to go play in a top European league. What are your thoughts and aspirations there?
Yeah, I mean, my dream as a kid has always been to play in Europe. I watched my dad do it, and it's something I've always wanted to do. But right now I want to win games here. There's no reason to look any further. I'm just trying to get better, and I want to win games for this team and for the city because the city deserves it.
They sure do, and you guys are deserving of everything that's coming your way here. 6-1 and a chance to move into first place tomorrow, untied first place, because already in first place at BC Place. Sebastian Berhalter, thanks for the time. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Cigars and Price from the historic Wall Center, the Pacific Toyota Dealers Studio, built by Arbor Lee. Cheer harder when you're well rested. Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center puts you minutes from the arena, miles ahead the next morning. Lock in your game day stay with at wallcenter.com. Well, a hearty congratulations to the 12-member class of the 2026 BC Sports Hall of Fame. My first year on the selection committee, Blake, very proud to work with this group, including Chairman Tom Manek, Curator Jason Beck, and Laura Russell Savage, who is the chair of the selection committee. Very pleased for our old friend John McKeechee, who a former broadcast partner of yours, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we did a morning show during the lockout together.
The 04 which lockout? The 04 lockout. Yeah. The big one.
McKeechee, Shorthouse, and Price.
Wow. Quite a group.
Yeah, that was something.
For John's election in the media category, sent him a note yesterday. He got back to me, and John has lived and breathed Vancouver and BC sports over his career, and just a delightful man. Leaves a mark. He's unmistakable.
Oh, yeah.
I was, and it's funny, Blake, because my first time in the room, and we dealt with like the media and the Pioneer and the WAC Bennett Award early on, and you just sort of go around the table. Mm-hmm. So then when it came time for the athlete category, it just so happened with where I was sitting, Lara pointed at me, he's like, Matt, you're up first. I'm like, oh my goodness, my first time up, and I'm here on the big category with all the athletes. It is a very difficult process, let me tell you, in having to compare and contrast athletes from different walks of life and their achievements.
Yeah.
Holy cow. I
a
thought,
lot of sports out there,
honestly,
too.
Blake, I set aside a couple hours on a Saturday morning to do this, and like 4 or 5 hours later, I was still there gripping over who I was going to cast my vote for.
And in a provincial jurisdiction, it takes on so many more sports and angles than this show does. Like, field hockey's near and dear to my heart, and there's a field hockey.
Yeah, and of course it's the BC Sports Hall of Fame, so you're not just weighing the athletic achievements, but the achievements within our province and the tie to our province, which is
and coaching
also important. I was very much in support of Doug Brown, Justin Cripps, and Jim Clive. Not to say I didn't support other candidates that got in. I did, but I came to the meeting intent on stating those three cases. Brown, if you're not familiar, from Port Moody, was the most valuable non-quarterback in the Canadian Football League over his splendid career with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Kind of like what Brent Johnson was to the Lions in his immediate aftermath. Like if you were, and I made the point in the meeting, if you were to ask the 9 CFL general managers, you're starting a franchise tomorrow and you're not allowed to pick a quarterback first, all the quarterbacks are accounted for, who are you taking? Doug Brown would have got a lot of those votes. He was an outstanding both run stopper and pass rusher from the interior of that Winnipeg D line. Had a chance to win a Grey Cup here in his hometown 2011 with that Swaggerville Bombers defense. Fell short, but needless to say, a superior player.
And an SFU product, too.
And an SFU guy, yep. Summerland's Justin Cripps is the only Canadian bobsledder to win medals in the 2 and the 4-man, an Olympic champion from the 2018 Pyeongchang Games. And he had broad support. Everybody recognized the achievements of Justin Cripps, so I was glad to see him get in. And then Jim Clive, I knew the name. I had met Jim before because I had seen him at Kits Fest with Howard Kelsey and Ron Putzi and the Canada One Foundation. But I did not recognize the contribution that this gentleman made to our province, and he is the godfather of beach volleyball in BC. And as soon as the weather turns nice, I mean, this week, take a drive down the beaches of Vancouver, whether it's your side of the bridge, whether it's my side of the bridge. Beach volleyball is ubiquitous in this city and in this province. The Kitts Beach courts, of course, are iconic. They have drawn aficionados of the sport far and wide. Will Chamberlain made a trip to Vancouver to play beach volleyball at the Kitts courts. I can't think of many who made a more lasting day-to-day sporting impact in our community than Jim Clive. And as I read through his biography, I know this is cliches, what people say, but I truly was astonished that he was not already in the BC Sports Hall of Fame. So very pleased for him. And shout out to all the other winners as well. Les Wilson, who was a forerunner for Canadian soccer, going over to play professionally in England when not a lot of people were doing that. Silvana Bertini was like Christine Sinclair before Christine Sinclair in terms of her achievement in soccer and putting the women's game on the map.
Georgia Simmerling is a unique. We've seen a lot of dual sports. She's triple sport and a triple sport Olympian. Like, there's not many that can do that. A triple sport Olympian, alpine skiing, ski cross, and track cycling.
Yep.
And
like Clara Hughes, but just with another sport added on there, which is extraordinary. Barb Harris has meant everything to the field hockey community in this province. I know you're the father of a field hockey player. Ozzie Chaveria in baseball, and boy, he has just done everything in the game of baseball up here. Played in the bigs. I got a nice note from our friend Kurt Appleby, former producer of our show, who's been very invested in baseball in this community, umpire. Talking about Ozzie, I know BMAC was very much charmed to hear Ozzie Chaveria get in. And John Mills of Basketball Canada, the WAC Bennett Award winner, Dr. Bruce Forster in the pioneering category, and the 2006 Vancouver Whitecaps women's team, which I'm told, because I was not as familiar, was pretty much regarded as the best women's professional team the Whitecaps ever put on the pitch. And of course, they achieved what they achieved despite having a sexual predator as head coach. So that is, that was talked about in the meeting, going like, look what was going on in the background of this team and what it was able to achieve. Yeah. So congratulations to all of the inductees to the 2026 BC Sports Hall of Fame. And I was delighted, honored to be a part of the process. Thomas Müller appealing to the public here to fill BC Place. Quote, I want to have the feeling that it's packed, he says. Caps versus Sporting KC, as we talked about with Sebastian Berhalter. 7:30 at BC Place tomorrow, expecting 21,000 plus, 6-1 Vancouver, looking to move into first place of MLS in the Western Conference, untied. And boy, you could say they have a sitter here. Sporting Kansas City is not only last place in the West with just 1 win and 1 draw in 7 games, they got throttled 3-0 in U.S. Open Cup play this week by USL side Colorado Springs. Blake, you're calling the game. I know you had a chit-chat with their head coach last night. What kind of mental state is this SKC side coming in?
Yeah, they're not in a good way. And, for a team that wasn't the Whitecaps, if you're through 7 games, let's say the Caps are 4-3, it might be a trap game for you. You might be a little bit over. The problem with the Whitecaps is they're just so damn good. It's like, I don't understand how this could be a problem for them. I think Jesper Sorensen is going to be tempted into some rotation, but does it matter? Müller is probably due for a rest. Sebastian Berhalter is probably due for a rest, but the schedule's not been crazy. Again, this has been the upside of not advancing in CONCACAF Champions. Because last night I was watching the Sounders and Tigres in the CONCACAF Champions Cup quarterfinal. This game looks a little bit more interesting, this SKC game. If the Whitecaps had just played last night, they would have bumped it over to Saturday. It wouldn't have been 1 day a break, but that's not what I mean. I just mean a congested schedule would have changed who's available, who's exhausted. Like, they're pretty fresh. Everybody's getting like there's not a lot to worry about if you're the Whitecaps. So we'll see.
We'll see what they dress. Müller, quote, "If I have a wish, I don't know how we can get it done, but it would be nice if the lower bowl is in every home game full. Not only almost full, I want to have the feeling that it's packed. To be honest, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable not only because I love this game, but also because we are delivering week in, week out." He went on to say, "It's not in our control, but I feel that we can provide something to get kind of a feeling going. I hope the fans maybe also stand up a little bit more to avoid it. I don't know what's going on in the background. Maybe they're trying to figure it out and they want to show what they want us, that they want us in the city. It will be nice if we could see it and feel it even a little bit more. We do our part. The rest is future. I don't know what's going on in the background." I hear what Thomas Müller is saying, but the thing is, this isn't a typical scenario with a club that has waning support and is a relocation candidate, right?
No.
Vancouver has always been a good commercial market for soccer. It's stadium related, both because of the limited revenue streams available to tenants at BC Place and because Don Garber has decided that BC Place just won't do in his push to get soccer-specific venues league-wide. So I hear what Thomas Müller is saying, and yes, certainly 26,000 and sellouts of every game from here on out, I think helps in terms of attracting a buyer. But I don't necessarily feel like support for the club is the main issue for anyone who would be looking to buy this team and get a stadium done on the Hastings site.
No,
it's more about the logistics and, as we've talked about, the layout of cash on the front end that would be required to get the stadium done.
I think what it shows any prospective buyer is that the support is there. You're not wondering, if I invest all this money and no one shows up, like, that it's there's proof of concept here. People do show up. You run the team properly, people show up and support this team. So it's proof of concept there. I think what it does, and this is unintentional, is it makes it really embarrassing if this team has to relocate. Because with this team not only top of the standings and now near the top of attendance figures, they're like fourth, I think, in MLS this season in attendance.
And that's without a big stadium game. That's without a Lionel Messi.
Yeah,
game.
no particular crown jewel game that has floated the boat here.
These have just been regular MLS games.
Yeah, and really kind of almost disadvantaged by the fact they've had to play all their home games in succession. So
I suppose they had Hamas here with Minnesota, who brought some people to the yard. I mean, that's an apples to eggs between him and Messi.
So I think that's the one thing is almost against conventional wisdom here is it's making it more embarrassing if they do end up leaving. The fact that no one would step up for your product,
and yet, Blake, when I heard Don Garber just talk about the Whitecaps' future last year at MLS Cup in Florida. And do so just, and I'll use the word just shamelessly. I was so angry because I'm like, Commish, they're hearing your final. They could be your champion. Give them their moment. Make it about the game on the weekend, and all other questions about their future after the fact. When he was so willing to again bang the drum about how BC Place is untenable and we need a new stadium. In the hours before kickoff of MLS Cup. Frankly, I don't think he has the shame. I think he would just up and move the team because he would stick to his guns and say, oh, well, they didn't get a stadium deal done. It's time to
maybe move. In his head, he wanted the leverage of that moment of look, this could be yours, or this is who we are. And
it was it was so off-putting. And
the other interesting question to Thomas yesterday was, would you ever be a part of the ownership group? Have you been approached about that?
Yeah.
And he said, no. But of course, if I was, now would not be the appropriate time to tell you that. So I would just tell you no anyway.
Exactly. Jays and Mariners both lose one-run games with bullpens blown at late last night. Seattle closer Andres Munoz is having a very tough year. He gives up 5 runs to San Diego in the 9th last night, and they blow the ball game. He's allowed 13 base runners in 6 2/3 this year. Jays Tyler Rogers, maybe the Canadian Matt Brash is going to get some save opportunities there. Jays Tyler Rogers, who has been excellent this year,
beaten by Milwaukee. Some bad luck as well. A throwing error by rookie catcher Brandon.
But this is now the second or third time they've had a great start, and they've just completely both
totally
of
blew
two Gosman starts have been blown.
And Dylan Cease yesterday.
Yeah.
Jay's back at it in a matinee against Milwaukee here to close that series. Vancouver Canadians with a 14-6 win in Spokane thanks to 2 grand slams. Reigning Northwest League Player of the Week Carter Cunningham, 2 for 3 with a grand slammy, 4 RBI. And Kendry Chirinos, 1 for 5. But if you're going to go 1 for 5, make it a grand slam.
Yeah, there you go.
4 RBIs. Middle infielder Maddox Latta, 2 for 6, his first professional home run. The Seas are back at it tonight in Spokane. Home Tuesday for a 6-game set against Tri-City. That poncho giveaway we told you about, going a week from Sunday on White Spot Family Fun Sunday, that is a Chef Wasabi poncho.
Oh, fun. Is it green?
Everybody loves Chef. I can't speak to its color, but I know it is a Chef Wasabi themed poncho, and you're just getting it for free.
I hope it warms up, by the way, in Washington, because the team bus leaving Spokane might encounter 2 feet of fresh snow in the passes.
Did you see the snow in downtown Seattle last
This is
night?
weird
With the
weather.
hills in downtown Seattle, and of course you know they don't have snow tires.
It snowed on me yesterday in North Van. For 5 seconds it snowed at 10 above.
And I will say this, of course, baseball doesn't want you wagering, but if you were to, with your seatmate, want to pick a favorite in the sushi mascot race, usually Wasabi.
Oh, really?
Well, I was only able to make one game last homestand, and he lost. I was stunned. It was opening night.
It's the gout of mascots.
Yeah, exactly. He is the gout of mascots, but usually Wasabi is quite competitive in the.
We know Wasabi, and he's not built like gout. So I'm surprised he's that.
Get your tickets Tuesday through Sunday next week. The Seas are here, 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com. BC Lions signed an interesting player, wide receiver, kick returner Silas Bolden. Spent time with the Vikings and Texans, had a decorated college career at Oregon State and Texas. For the Longhorns, he returned a punt for a touchdown in the college football quarterfinal a couple years ago. Really explosive guy, like 5'8", 170.
Fun.
But could be a lot of fun on the big field. Returning kicks, we'll see. They also released a pair of Canadians, offensive lineman Tyler Packer, defensive lineman Anthony Bennett. Packer played 19 games over the last 4 years, was a good spare part on that offensive line, filling in at a number of positions, and Bennett played in just the 4 games last year after coming over from Ottawa. Do you feel better about the Quinn Hughes trade today than at the time it was made? Yesterday's poll question, people said.
Yes.
Correct. Percentage?
73.
75. Very good, Blake. Ellie says still pissed. Lots of S's in there from Ellie. SK felt great then, feel great now. Michael, Buium maybe not as productive as some were hoping, but still on track to be a top pair guy. Rossi is a 2C, no doubt. Ogren has been much better with us. First is locked in at 24 unless Minnesota reaches the conference finals. We guaranteed best lottery odds and top 3 pick. Yes! And 2 errors and omissions from yesterday's program. We had a bit of a camera matter on Blake's camera. Blake broke another camera.
I died. Yeah.
And we mentioned Patrick Alvin was out on the road scouting. He was at the home finale on Tuesday, lest anyone think he would skip the home finale. Farhan wanted us to
That would be odd.
clarify that. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, including YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.